You're still tuned in to Salam Media, and this hour of news and views is proudly sponsored by Africa Muslims Agency. Africa Muslims Agency, a beacon of hope to communities for over 35 years in Africa and beyond. As an interesting story, if you still remember load shedding, I think it's been almost 70 days without load shedding, and a lot of South Africans might have forgotten. Well, energy experts have warned that there's a high risk of load shedding in the coming weeks as demand increases due to cold weather. ESCOM highlighted that South Africa had gone around 70 days without load shedding. The last time this happened was between the 5th of December 2021 and the 2nd of February 2022. The power utility attributed to its generation fleet improvement and performance and reliability to its generation operational recovery plan, which began in March 2023. And we'll be speaking to energy expert Mohamed Madhi. Mohamed, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Salam Media. Really excited to be having this conversation with you.
Thank you, Silalo, and great to be here, and good morning to all the viewers.
ESCOM proudly announcing that it's been more than 70 days without any power outages in South Africa. Are they being honest? They are attributing this to an improved performance and reliability of its generation operational recovery plan, and saying all of the load shedding that we've been experiencing was basically trying to fix and repair all of their systems, and now we have reached a point where we are about 70% of energy that they are able to give to the people of South Africa. Is this honest? Is the hard work finally paying off for the power utility company of South Africa?
So that's a great question. I think let's just start with the facts. The generation fleet has been improving in terms of performance, and it's certainly been more available. So there's been a higher availability factor. However, there is still usage outside of the coal generation field from or fleet from the open cycle gas turbines. And the question is to be asked, if there is such a high availability factor compared to what there was in previous months, why are we still using the open cycle gas turbines? So that's a question that we think it needs to be answered very comprehensively. And the public should be aware of what the exact usage is of these OCGTs and what the spend is on them. The second point to note is that none of the officials within ESCOM or government are promising that this is the end to load shedding. They're saying there's definitely an improvement, and no doubt there is an improvement in the performance of the fleet. But unfortunately, it's not the end of load shedding. It hasn't really been tested, this improvement in the performance of the fleet, because we've had fairly mild weather up to about a week ago, and we had, not an increased demand. So the real test will come when we have colder weather and an increased demand from industry.
And a lot of people have been quoting the fact that there's possibly a lot of diesel that has been burnt leading up to the elections, probably trying to save face for the African National Congress. How true is this? Has there been a burning of millions and millions of liters of diesel to keep the lights on for South Africans?
Look, that is true, and as far as we can tell, the open cycle gas turbines have been burning diesel. So they're called open cycle gas turbines, but they've been repurposed using diesel. So they don't use gas because there simply isn't enough gas in that part of the world. And, we get all our gas through Mozambique and a little bit through import in terms of LPG. But other than that, there isn't really gas. So those open cycle gas turbines use diesel. And there has been a huge amount of diesel spend on those open cycle gas turbines. And this is the question I was alluding to earlier that needs to be answered. Why, if there is such a high availability factor, do we still have these open cycle gas turbines operating at such a high level and spending so much money on diesel? That should surely come to an end immediately.
And just now looking forward, a lot of energy experts, yielding that warning that there's going to be high risk of load shedding in the coming weeks. How excessive do you think is going to be? You have mentioned that we haven't had a change in weather. It has been mild. The demand has been particularly low, but especially here in Gauteng, it's been quite cold. For the last few days. Is this going to impact Eskom now? Are South Africans going to go back to feel the wrath of load shedding like you've experienced in the beginning parts of the year and the previous year?
Look, undoubtedly, there will be load shedding. My suspicion of what has happened up to now is that the power stations were run in a particular mode, and that mode allows the power stations to operate for about 3 to 6 months in that mode. But you cannot operate that way indefinitely, and it has long term consequences. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we will see an uptick in terms of the demand from the cold weather, as you point out, but also from increased economic activity. And I'll tell you what the real big danger is for Eskom and those in planning. We've had a negative GDP growth in the first 3 months of this year. And so people assume there's a slight downtick in economic activity. The reverse is actually true, because what we've seen, and we have various indicators that we look at as well, what we've seen is that the engineering and architectural industries, the building and construction industries, and a few other industries, manufacturing as well, have all started increasing their hiring and
Mm,
started increasing their output. And that normally is a lead indicator of an increase in economic activity. Now, when that happens, you're going to have quite a bit of demand coming from industry. So, from the consumers of Eskom power. Couple that with the cold weather, and you certainly are going to see a high probability of load shedding. And unfortunately, in my own view, by the time we get to December, January next year, it's going to be back to square one, more or less where we were before. Not only because in the hot weather you're also using more power, but because of
mm,
increased economic activity. So the last point on this particular aspect is, even if there is no load shedding according to current levels, Eskom is not prepared for increased economic activity. And we now need to raise the bar at Eskom and generally within our energy supply industry to be able to provide power for an increased level of economic activity. This is really crucial for the country.
And just lastly, before I let you go, let's talk about the impact of the Minister of Electricity. This is a department which was non-existent, for a very long time. We didn't have someone who was, in charge of, electricity, the supply and demand thereof. He's come in, he's made a few changes. We went 70 days without load shedding. Is it a positive? Is it working? Is Minister Josienzo doing the job at ESCOM?
I think overall he has made a positive contribution. And certainly there has been, if nothing else, there has been a focus on what needs to be done. I think the danger now would be to lose that focus and to not have that portfolio continue. We certainly need that
Mm,
portfolio to continue. I think the portfolio needs to have a sharpened focus. It's not necessarily concentrating on the most high priority areas. It also needs to, as I said before, raise its level of thinking to understand what needs to be done in order to cater for an increased economic activity in the country. And lastly, we need competent people from the industry to be part of that initiative. Unfortunately, the challenge you have there is that people with that kind of expertise and competence would rather be in the private sector than
mm,
in that kind of initiative. But we need to get over that somehow.
I think we're going to leave it there. Mohamed Madhi, the CEO of Cyanide Energy and also an energy expert. Really, really appreciate your time and you giving us your insights here on Salam Media.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to leave it there with Mohammed. But in a bit, we'll be, having one of my favorite segments. It's called Fired Up. It's sponsored by Africa Muslims Agency. This is a segment where, we get you fired up for the week that was. I'm not sure of today's topic, but I'm sure it's going to be a really, really interesting one. So listen up.